Hi, I'm Marco from iDoc. If you dropped your phone and the display is broken, this video shows you how to replace the display by yourself. We recommend to always replace the display as a complete unit with frame. This costs hardly more and it makes the repair easier and safer. This way the display doesn't have to be glued precisely, but all parts are removed from the mobile phone and transferred to the new display unit.
eingesetzt werden.
The repair is a bit more difficult because the back cover is strongly glued. You need about 60 to 90 minutes. For the repair, we recommend the following tools: several flat picks, a steel spatula, a Phillips screwdriver, ESD tweezers and a plastic spudger. A wide battery spudger helps you if the glued battery is difficult to remove. The tool for loosening the glued back cover should be as wide and narrow as possible, such as the iFlex or iPlastics. It should also have no sharp edges to avoid scratching the rear glass or the frame. You'll need a hot air dryer or an ordinary hairdryer to loosen any heavily glued parts. You'll find the spare part in our store as well as high-quality tools in our repair kit along with the handy magnetic mat. The links can be found in the info box below. On our website idoc.eu you will find this manual with detailed photos and videos for each step. Before the repair, back up your data and make sure your desktop is clean and well lit. And now have fun with the repair.
Spaß bei der Reparatur.
Check your spare part for visible damage before repairing. Take a close look at the surface and the flexible cable. If something is not in the right condition, do not install the spare part, but return it to your retailer. Switch off the device first to avoid short circuits during repair. If the screen stops working, it's no big deal. The device will turn off immediately if you disconnect the battery in a few steps. The mobile phone is opened via the heavily glued back cover. You can loosen it by heating the glue and sliding a flat tool between the back cover and the frame. But beware, after a repair, the phone is generally no longer waterproof. Take a hot air gun or an ordinary hairdryer and gradually heat up the entire edge of the back cover. Don't overheat the phone, just warm it up to the point where you can still touch it easily. Tools like the iPlastics or the iFlex are ideal for opening the phone. The iFlex is extremely flexible, has rounded edges, and is very thin yet stable. There's a small gap between the frame and display where you can insert your tool. Then slide it along the entire frame and gradually loosen the glue. To prevent the adhesive from sticking again, you can use several picks and insert them into the already detached section. Then warm up again the spot where you continue to work and move your tool further along the edge. Be especially careful as the back cover is made of glass and can break easily. Do not push the tool too far into the device and make sure that the edges of the tool do not scratch the back cover. Therefore, we recommend that you continue with a plastic tool as soon as possible. At the level of the volume buttons, the connection cable of the fingerprint sensor is located directly under the back cover. You should only insert your tool there about half a centimeter. If necessary, start several times and warm up again and again in between. It can take half an hour to remove the back cover. Better take a little more time and work carefully to prevent any damage. On the lower side, the back cover is glued very strongly. If the back cover is detached everywhere, lift it only slightly. The fingerprint sensor beneath the camera is still connected with a cable. Separate the connector with a spudger. You can see the glue on the edge. Above the USB port, the back cover is glued very strongly. Now remove the back cover and put it aside. Then remove all Phillips screws from the plastic cover and put them aside together. If some screws do not come loose immediately, you can use a pair of tweezers. The cover protects the mainboard and contains the coils for contactless charging. The cover is lightly glued to the side of the frame. Remove the glue and take out the cover. Now the battery connector is exposed. To avoid short circuits during repair, always disconnect the battery first. The battery is heavily glued, so you should use hot air again to loosen the glue. However, never heat the battery directly, but always from the display side. We recommend using a flat tool, such as the iPlastics, to get under the battery on all sides and to carefully lever it out. If you can't get under the battery like this, you can use a more stable tool. The wide battery spudger is shaped to lift the battery by gently levering it. Again, take a little more time and warm up the glue repeatedly. Don't bend the battery and don't use any tools to stab or damage the battery. Also be careful not to damage any surrounding components. When the adhesive is loosened, lift the battery and remove it from the device. As you can see, the battery is only glued at the outer edges and not in the middle. In the next step, remove the speaker. First, loosen the Phillips screws. Then lift the speaker and remove it. It is slightly hooked to the bottom of the frame. Now disconnect the connector of the front camera with a spudger. If possible, always lever from a side where there are no components on the circuit board. Then take the camera out of its socket. Also disconnect the sensor and carefully remove it. Now remove the SIM holder. The best way is to use a SIM tool or a paper clip. Then pull out the SIM holder. Now disconnect the different connectors from the main board. Take care not to damage any components on the board. Lever carefully and then bend the contacts slightly to the side. The large contact is the display connector and the round connectors belong to different antennas. It is best to separate the white and blue antenna cable by slightly twisting with a pair of tweezers. Do not lever on the plug itself, otherwise you could damage the socket on the board. Now loosen the single screw that fixes the mainboard. Before you remove the board, make sure that all connectors are bent to the side and do not get stuck. The main board is still connected to the USB board at the bottom. Flip the board up and disconnect the connector with the spudger. Then put the board aside. The vibration motor is glued. Take hot air again to loosen it. With a flat tool like the steel spatula, you can then carefully lever out the motor. Do not lever on the golden contacts as these can easily be bent. Now detach the glued sensor cable. The cable is hooked in at the top. Lift it slightly and loosen the copper adhesive strip. If the tape breaks, it's not that serious. Now loosen the glued earpiece with a flat tool. You may also already have an earpiece built into your spare part. Then you don't have to take it over. Next, remove the audio jack. Loosen the single screw and then disconnect the connector. At the top corner you can lever out the jack with a thin tool. Then remove the screws of the USB board. Heat the entire cable set a little to loosen the glue. Then remove the cable glued to the edge, for example with a steel spatula. Then take the board in one hand and loosen it bit by bit with the spatula. Loosen also the two antenna cables from the guide next to the battery compartment. Lever the charging socket out of its opening and then take out the whole USB board. The right spare part and tools for this repair can be found in our online shop at iDoc.eu. Now take the new display and compare it with the old one. If necessary, you'll have to take over some gaskets or covers. Our original Samsung spare part comes with everything. Remove all foils that protect, for example, the different openings for the camera and the sensors. Place the USB board in the case and push the USB connector firmly into its opening. Make sure that all other parts are positioned correctly and then lead the small flex cable under the plastic guide on the edge. Also push the two antenna cables back into their guides. Finally, fasten the board with the Phillips screws. Insert the audio jack again and press it down lightly. The socket should snap into place noticeably. Reconnect the connector and screw the jack back on. If your spare has no earpiece, you must insert it now. Make sure it is correctly positioned and press it down firmly. Now insert the sensors and press them on. Also reapply the copper strip. Then insert the vibration motor in its place and press it into position. Make sure that there is still some glue underneath. Take the main board and attach the connector at the bottom. Now you can slowly fold down the board and insert it into the device. Be careful not to pinch any cables. Bend all antennas and connectors to the side. Check that the board is positioned correctly and then secure it with the single Phillips screw. You can now reconnect all connectors. You can position the antennas with tweezers and then press them tight. You can now also connect the connectors for the display and the volume keys. All connectors connect with a light click. If not, detach the connector and try again. Now reinsert the SIM holder. If it gets stuck, don't push it in with force, but check if the main board doesn't fit properly. Place the sensor in its place and attach the connector to the main board. Also insert the front camera and connect the connector. Now reinsert the battery. But first check the adhesive residue on the bottom side. Make sure that the adhesive does not wrinkle, otherwise it could push the battery to the top. If necessary, remove the adhesive in these areas and then place the battery in its place. Make sure it has some space on all sides and doesn't press against the frame. Then put the speaker back on top of the USB board, press it tight and fasten it. Make sure it is hooked in at the bottom. Now reconnect the battery. Position the contact over its connector and press it down carefully. Then put on the plastic cover with the charging coil in place, hook it in at the top and press it tight all around. Make sure that it is hooked in everywhere and does not stick out. Then fasten all screws again. Before placing the back cover on the case, check the adhesive. It should be evenly distributed on the edge so that the back cover is flush all over. Remove excess glue if necessary. If you want, you can also remove the old adhesive and use a new adhesive frame. We have linked it in the info box below. Before you push the back cover back onto the case, connect the fingerprint sensor to the connector. Use a plastic tool to reach the connector. Test your phone first before you glue the back cover back on. Here in the video you can see another phone, but all Samsung smartphones have the same test menu. Turn on the device and open the dialing box. Here you enter asterisks, #0, asterisks, # and the test menu opens. In the test menu you can test the display for pixel errors and check the touch screen. You can also check all other functions such as the camera, speaker, or status LED. If everything's fine, you can finally close your phone. Heat the rear glass again with hot air so that the adhesive bonds again. Please note that the smartphone is no longer fully protected against liquids after repair. As long as the glue cools down, you can press the back glass down with your fingers or lightly weigh it down. The repair is now finished and I hope you enjoyed it.
Fragen, Anregungen.
If you have any questions, suggestions or hints, please write it in the comments below. We will be happy to help you. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.
Bis zum nächsten Mal.